all of you risk takers and truth seekers to podcast life the battlefield. Today, I have somebody special online, somebody who is truly admiring. And if I can give the award, whatever you want to call the medal for courage, I will give it to him. Ladies and gentlemen, I have today the exclusive opportunity to talk to the Nathan Livingstone from Milk Bar TV. Nathan, welcome to the podcast Life the Battlefield.
Thanks very much for having me, Mary.
You're welcome. Look, I just want to ask you a question. Just introduce to ourselves, as I said, like, I'm admiring you for what you've done for past couple of years. Standing against wrong things in our lives. But my question is to introduce yourself. Who is Nathan Livingstone and why Milk Bar TV?
I'm Australian. I grew up in Melbourne. My father's an Anglican priest. I always loved filmmaking. I thought maybe I'd be an actor at some point. So I even kind of gave that a little bit of a shot for a little bit. I realized I actually wanted to make films. So I moved to Sydney and I went to a film school in Sydney and lived there for a few years. And then I spent, most of my 20s kind of working hospitality and drifting around and kind of wasting time. And in my mind, I was rationalizing it, thinking that I was somehow being productive and, working on scripts in my head and everything, when really I was just kind of being lazy and procrastinating. And then I started to kind of finally get my ass into gear by like 2019. And I started making more and more short films and working on more and more scripts. And just as I started to be at kind of the peak of my productivity, COVID happened and we went into lockdown. And I was in Melbourne, so we had the longest lockdown in the world. I'd started kind of working in warehousing, so I was a forklift driver by that point. And then I lost a couple of jobs because of the pandemic. And then vaccine mandates hit, and I decided I'd make the stand that, the government can't enforce what citizens can and can't put into their bodies. So I decided to make that stand, and I lost my job because of the vaccine mandates. And that's when I started Milk Bar TV and started making these kind of political videos and started becoming active on social media. And that's kind of the origins. And then people really took to them, and they got more and more popular. And I've been kind of doing that ever since. And last year I quit forklift driving, and so I do videos full time now.
Well, this is what I tried to say from the beginning. Your story, it is very unique. And I tell you why, because you remind me of younger me. Because it's like, I'm a professional stalker, so I saw you on X, or previously known as a Twitter. And I said to myself, this gentleman here with his videos really uplifting my day. He says what most of people think, but they don't dare to say. And why I say you're reminding of me, it's because I was 18 years old when I transitioned from communism to democracy. So I was plunged into the civil war. So I was a part of this, uprising. I was young and naive and everything else. And I remember secret police chasing me as 18 years old. But then I went in a war. And yet I saw your videos. I said to myself, I need to have the Nathan on my podcast because you're standing for the little man. I think that's what it is. And I said, you had the more courage than most of the men will ever have. I'm telling you right now, I saw the man, alpha male, type of the Andrew Tate, big guys and all, blah, blah, blah. But when the war come, they run away. Now, Nathan, I want to ask you, transitioning from the being on peak of your career in biggest lockdown in Melbourne, how did you felt? How the people live there? Look, I'm living in Sydney, so we were looking from here, from distance, like a biggest horror movie, And honestly, I don't know. So do you mind to guide our audience, your experience, what you saw with your eyes, and how did you felt during the lockdown?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say I kind of have courage and
yes,
I kind of took a stand. But the thing is, I came quite late to actually being politically active and pushing back. But that's the thing with my filmmaking. I never made political films. I was never really interested in making political films. I actually don't like films being overly political unless they're upfront about the fact that they're being political, because most of the time I think it actually gets in the way of that work of art. You feel like you're being preached to instead of that you're having a conversation. And I don't particularly like, I think art should be a dialogue and about asking questions. I don't think it should be about giving a sermon. So for me, that's the thing. It's like, I'd never been to a protest in my life. I'd never kind of taken to the streets and, was speaking out. Yeah. And even when I started going to the protests against vaccine mandates, I wasn't there as a protester, chanting and holding placards. Yeah. I was there documenting it and filming it and trying to kind of share that around the world and let people see what was happening. So that's where, to go back to Melbourne and the lockdowns, it was very much just me and my fiance at that part. When we first went to lockdowns, we didn't struggle at first. I think both of us are kind of introverts. So it was like, well, here's an opportunity where we can kind of... it's almost an excuse to be lazy at some point, because everyone had stopped at that point. So there was no kind of competition where you were looking at other people and you're like, oh, that guy's got a promotion, that guy's doing well. It's like everyone had kind of stopped at that point. So I was like, all right, well, this is great. I can watch movies, I can work on scripts. As I said, I just finished a film. So then I was kind of working on writing the script for the next one and trying to cast it and get ready for that. But still, from the very beginning, I was already had kind of decided that lockdowns were immoral and a step too far for a government to be able to implement them. So I knew that, and I was very vocal about that with people I knew, and I'd post every now and again on Facebook. I wasn't really a social media person, but I had people that I knew, and it was kind of, I felt like I needed to kind of express how I felt about it. I just, from the get-go, I just didn't think that governments should be able to force businesses to close, let alone be able to say that you can't be at the bedside of a family member who's dying, or you can't bury a family member and say goodbye to them in public. For me, I was terrified by that notion, and already I'd kind of made my mind up that, especially with this virus and the risk it posed, that was far too much power for the government. But that's the thing. I wasn't politically active. I wasn't really active on social media, and I wasn't attending those illegal protests in Melbourne. It was still very much something that I was outwardly speaking about with friends and family. But it wasn't something that I was engaging in politically. But yeah, the Melbourne lockdowns, they just kept going, and the more it became apparent that that the government had kind of backed themselves into a corner where they were chasing COVID zero, and it was this kind of just crazy strategy that wasn't based in reality. So that's why, I know that I've been consistent throughout, that I think that the government overreach was clear from day one and it should have never happened. But it wasn't until vaccine mandates, until me really kind of deciding that, no, like, I'm not going to get the COVID vaccine, and I'm willing to lose my job because of it, that was the catalyst for me to actually get much more, say, like, politically active. And then after that, I attended pretty much every protest in Melbourne.
You know what? I just want to say to you, like, it's nothing than short admiration for what you would just say right now. I think that people, at first, as you say, like, they become introverted. Everybody say, like, okay, I have time now for myself, for my family. But in Victoria was obviously being run by the one-man agenda. There was not being run by anything. I would say, what is demoralizing that actually what was happening in Victoria, it's a distraction from the real things happen right now. As we can see right now in Victoria, the Commonwealth Games being cancelled, $700 million taxpayers needs to pay the money. All these projects are actually in a halt. So everything was a big snowball of the lies rolling. So like even that lockdowns, and I do remember very clearly, And when they closed those two towers with this house commissioning, I think was happening. I was sitting myself, so like, why would you lock down people into the breeding space of possible virus because you can't get out? It's going to just circulate. It's going to get more numbers. I realized that this is actually just a political agenda. It's nothing else, you know what I mean? There's no COVID zero, that cannot be, you know what I mean? And then you go for the protest. How did you feel when you go for the protest? What was the mood amongst the people, Nathan, during this lockdown?
The protests were incredible. I don't know if the protests changed anything from a like a policy standpoint or politically, but I think the protests were incredible because Melbourne had gone through, like a year and a half of being in a lockdown. So you're looking at an entire population that had been isolated and had kind of been separated. And even on social media, it had been heavily censored. So it was very hard to actually not only get information, but also to engage with that information, but also to build a community. So it was very hard to actually meet other like-minded people that felt like what was going on was an injustice and was against our human rights. So then by the time that you kind of took to the streets, and that's the thing important to remember, protests were illegal. There's that footage that to this day is shocking of, Victorian police firing on their own citizens with rubber bullets and with pepper spray.
Communism was not like this. I'll tell you right, they say. In communism was not like this. And I lived in communism, and I remember riots, police will start and they will step back because they say we can't smash the people because they're seeking the rights, it's not something like this. But Melbourne was going beyond. I do remember when this poor guy was being rammed by the police car, and then they done the romper stomp on his head, and I think myself, this is somebody else's son. Father,
yeah.
Husband, whatever.
You've got that person who's at Flinders Street Station who's just talking to the police and, and then just a police officer comes up behind him and just sling tackles him, to the ground, and you just hear his head just whoop, you just hear it just smash. And to this day, none of these police officers have been charged, or they're still all serving, and none of them have been reprimanded. So I think that's the important context to remember. That Dan Andrews said enough about human rights. I don't want to have to hear about human rights, about people complaining about not being able to protest. Now isn't the time to protest. So then by the time that protests were actually legal. It was incredible to actually be there and to see hundreds of thousands of people. And there were hundreds of thousands of people. They try and talk down the numbers, but I was there, and I've never seen a gathering like that. So then to be able to be there and to be amongst other people who felt the same way, that what had been happening for a year and a half was just wrong, and just to be there with these people. And again, they tried to kind of paint these crowds, as they always do, in one way, saying that somehow these people were all whites or Nazis or were this or that. It's it's the most diverse group I've ever seen. From people across every kind of dimension of race and religion. It was incredible that all these people just shared that feeling, and the idea of what was happening in Australia was wrong, and that they believed that Australians shouldn't have been treated this way. And that was incredible to be there. It was it was emotional. I even took my Anglican priest dad, who he got jabbed. He got up to his booster. He complied with all of it, but yet he felt that. He felt that the pandemic laws that they were trying to put in place, which would give Dan Andrews and the Victorian government even more powers, he felt that was wrong. So he was there marching along other people that were unvaccinated and that were marching against vaccine mandates. And even to him, he came one week and then he came the next week. And even for him, it was emotional seeing that amount of people that were that passionate fighting for everyone else's freedom in Australia.
Yeah, look, I just give you some anecdote. 2022, I took my son in Croatia to see where I'm coming from. It was a big anniversary from military, so like I was being invited, and we come in the cab, and my son has a mask, right? 2022 in December, and the cab driver in Croatia says like, "Are you from Australia to wear the mask? Get this mask off the face." And my son was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, I said to speak in Croatian, Mateo, so he doesn't understand that you are, from Australia. And he felt a little bit offended. So like, but we are not all from Victoria, need to wear the mask, And the guy says, "Are you from Australia?" He said, like, "My son and I, we are." I explained to him, he says to him, "Oh my God, what's happened to these people in Victoria? The police, just shooting the rubber bullets and everything else." Like, well, that was in Victoria. And nobody can say to me there was no political will to stop this. Instead of this, there was continuing happening on daily basis. And a few people like yourself stood up and tried to send the news across the world, what's happening, why it's happening. So tell me something, Nathan. I ask you in my questionnaire, little one, social media and lockdowns. What did you see? What happened with social media and lockdowns?
I didn't become active in social media until, when was it? July 2022. So I wasn't particularly active throughout all those first lockdowns. Sorry, not 2022, 2021. So I wasn't really on social media throughout 2020. When Melbourne had those really hardcore lockdowns. There's always that terrifying footage of the woman who's pregnant, who lives out, in rural Victoria, so not even like metropolitan Victoria, and the police came into her house and arrested her in her pajamas.
That was all because across the globe,
Yeah, well, because she was helping to plan a protest against lockdowns, and that's like the important context with that is, this isn't in the city in Melbourne. This is outside the city. This is in a town outside of the city where they've had no outbreaks. There's no major cases. But you saw that continually over and over again. So they were monitoring social media hardcore, and they were cracking down on people. You can talk to people like Topher Field and people who were kind of active in trying to kind of push back and trying to protest all throughout that time. But even by the time I was on social media, my first account on Twitter was taken down. It was nuked for some made up reason. Just as the videos were really kind of starting to get bigger, there wouldn't be a Milk Bar TV if that first account was still up, because that first account was under my name. And it was only after I put up I can tell you what the video was, train spotting, the one about the heroin addicts in Scotland. So I did that, and I called it vein spotting. And it was all about Dan Andrews and Brett Sutton all pushing the COVID jabs. So I just put them in all the roles instead of the heroin addicts. It was these people pushing the COVID jabs. And so I just did the trailer with them, and it was provocative in that you saw the kind of needles coming in, and it was Brett Sutton as a drug dealer. But just as that was starting to kind of to go viral, they cracked down on that, and then it wasn't long after that my account was entirely taken down, and they gave me some made up reason that I had multiple accounts, some technical kind of thing. But I mean, the reason I think is because the videos were starting to get out there. They were definitely monitoring and definitely cracking down.
The cracking. That's that's a big difference between the go-getters and the people who are sitting in the background. You are deliberately, purposely, you try to, inspire the people and make them laugh. And I truly believe that Professor Brett Sutton, he's happy that he stopped the bare hands. His bare hands stopped the pandemic in Victoria, because I never understood that story in Victoria. Like, we in Sydney living here, we don't have those draconian measures, right? Like you guys in Victoria. It's the same virus. The virus doesn't know the borders. So for me, it was like a little bit, I said, thank God I'm living in Sydney, because even police is here different. I love police here because nobody was literally jumping on us. You know, I mean, it was the one protest, and you know, people say,
it was definitely Sydney was different. I mean, there was still human rights violations. The government still went too far, but no, compared to Victoria, it was very different. And we live in New South Wales now. You know, we moved.
So what did you move? Okay, when you say this, what did you move? When did you move? And why did you move? Did you say like to your fiance or wife now? Did you say like, listen, it's time, it's come, let's go?
Yeah, so we're married now. We got married late last year, but we got engaged just before lockdowns. And so, you know, we were planning to get married in like 2020, and then we didn't get married till last year, just because all our family's overseas. So we couldn't get married. So that was another way that it kind of impacted us personally. But yeah, we moved July 2022, and I can remember that week because that was the week when one of my videos went the most viral it's ever gone. And it was just a coincidence that it was the same week then that we moved. And a big reason was because of the vaccine mandates. I managed to get a job, and I was working illegally as a in a warehouse. So a business took that risk.
Sorry to say, like, did you see what's like? I work illegally because I'm not jabbed.
Yeah. And I can tell you, it's crazy. I mean, that's the thing. I didn't work for 6 months. And, you know, whenever you're unemployed, you get that feeling that you kind of useless and you kind of question yourself. And I would get that then, and then I'd kind of remember, oh, that's right, like I can't work. It's actually illegal for me to work. And so every time I'd still call up to find work, and always the business would be excited because of my experience, and they needed workers at that point, and they needed forklift drivers. But then invariably they get to the point where they'd ask me my vaccine status, and then I'd tell them, and, you know, it would be straight away, sorry, well, you know, you need to be vaccinated. And a lot of the time they would say, look, I don't agree with this, but unfortunately this is just what it is. So even the place that did hire me, they at first rejected me. And then 3 days later, they were like, do you know what? We need workers so bad. We're willing to look past this and take the chance. So I worked there. But when I moved, there was still vaccine mandates in place in Victoria. But it was just...
I think still they are for the doctors, nurses, or...
Yeah, I mean, there's still firemen is a big one. There's still, you know, I mean, there still are vaccine mandates, and that's important to highlight to this day that there's still people who can't work because of their vaccine status. But yeah, we needed to move because it had been just years and years of lockdowns and the vaccine mandates. We were just ready to be done with Victoria. And I used to love Melbourne, but forever I think it's gonna change how I feel about that state and that city. So we now live on the Central Coast. So we got out of the city, and we love it. It still feels like we're on holiday. It still feels like oh no, maybe we're gonna have to go back to Victoria. You know,
the reason I say, like, sorry to interrupt you. The reason why I want to talk to you today, it's a straightforward. You display the courage. The bravery, it's something different, right? But from the courage, it's your ideas to put into action. But bravery, when you face the mortal danger, right? That's the reason why in a war we get all these mentals, on the bravery, blah blah. But the courage is that you say what you think. And today I have a true opportunity to talk to somebody who doesn't hide behind a nickname, pushing the whatever their agendas, whatever, left, right, center, I don't care. I was a young communist. I was 14 years old when I went to military school in communism. That was that was the way how you do it. Then you get a red booklet. Happy communist. This is for you. I didn't know nothing better, and I truly believe that everybody was wrong. But then when I'm sitting now back from this distance and seeing somebody like yourself who put himself out, not just for himself, but for the entire generation of the people who don't have the courage to say what they think about whatever they are, you did it, right? But I want to continue our conversation in different direction. So, we wish all the best people in Victoria. They have the great leadership over there. Taxpayers are still paying the money. Like today I heard $700 million for the Commonwealth Games. I mean, seriously, it doesn't make sense. But you still continuing standing for little people. And today I want our second part of conversation, go to the country known for the Dracula, Transylvania, Romania, right? And the brother state, okay? I'm seeing you are showing the people there's a reason why not to follow brother state. And I'm admiring for that one as well, because most of people were there in I would say in a bed, metaphorically, with Andrew Tate and all these things, matrices and blah. But these guys, actually, the pimps, they raped the girls, not in one country, in multiple countries. And yet they were on social media portray themselves as a saviors of the human society. And then comes the Milk Bar TV. Now, Mike, it's yours, Brother State. And what's in the world of Brother State and why we love them so much?
Yeah, the Andrew Tate thing was interesting because I didn't really feel one way or another about the guy. He only came onto my radar probably late 2022 when he did his first interview with Piers Morgan. But I saw with Milk Bar TV, I covered a lot of the pandemic and the COVID vaccines and vaccine mandates. But I do other videos on other subjects as well. And Andrew Tate was just one where he got more and more notoriety, and I saw more and more people in the circles that we probably are both in, people who are kind of I don't know what you call them, there's different names like freedom fighters and people who are awake, and I don't really like any of these labels, but these people who are fighting against say a globalist threat. And I saw more and more of these people embrace Andrew Tate. So I then saw more and more of him pop up on my feed. And it was eventually when he did the interview with Tucker Carlson that went really, really huge on Twitter, because Tucker had been fired from Fox. And so he just started doing content on Twitter. Twitter's pretty much where Milk Bar TV is mostly exists. And it was with that interview that I realized that Andrew Tate had straight up lied about his charges with his human trafficking and rape case. That just really kind of stood out to me, because I just think it's a strange thing to do if you're innocent, to lie about what you're charged with. Because that's something that's very easy to verify, and that's something that's black and white. There's no kind of gray area there. You're either charged with human trafficking and rape, or you're not. And the fact that he lied and said that he wasn't charged with rape.
There is no in between, gray area.
That's right.
Black or white, you are not there.
Yeah, so then I was like, well, he's clearly lying at this point. So then I looked more and more into him, and I found out more and more about his past, and that he was a pimp, and that he bragged about being a pimp, and that he kind of built his empire off webcamming and off grooming women into sex work, and that not only did he do that as a business, but he also taught courses in how other men could use the same methodology that he was using, so they could emulate it. And this is the same methodology that he'd been charged with, the Loverboy method, which is all about lying and manipulating, coercing women by pretending that you're in love with them. And so over a long space of time, you slowly convince them that they're in love with you, and you hide the fact that throughout all this time, you actually have the secret intention to then make them become sex workers.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so, I just made this video, which was kind of a compilation of just who this guy truly was. And the power is that I used all of his own words and all of his own videos that he made against him. And so it was just this contrast with him attempting to kind of attempting to reinvent himself as some sort of a truth teller, where in fact you realize he's just a con man and a scam artist, and he's just trying to kind of launder his criminal and despicable past into becoming something new and that it was working. And there was a lot of powerful, influential people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens who'd embraced him and were platforming him on their platforms. So yeah, so I made this video and it went insanely viral. All these people then covered on their podcasts, like Ben Shapiro and people from the Daily Wire and a lot of people from the conservative movement. And then from then, I've only got to know more and more about his case and who he is. So that's been a thread that I've kind of pursued since then, since July last year.
Look, as I say, when someone is famous, nobody wants to go after them. They recently... Jay Shetty come into trouble in the spotlight as well because of his. I'm not sure did you hear not, but he's been interviewed by the journalist from the Guardian, and the journalist from the Guardian discover so many lies and so many loopholes, and that the story doesn't hold with Jay Shetty. So like all these celebrities become celebrity, but obviously for one intention, that's to become the famous and make the money. With the brother state, like I said, like I feel a little bit in my own matrix, I try to understand what those two brothers try to achieve behind the mics every night, the same place, the same house. But I know somebody in Romania called my school friend, and he told me, we analyzed his case, but the biggest statement on a court states this. Andrew Tate stated this: I come in Romania when I can bribe police officer for 50 euros. Maybe you can, but you don't say this public. And that's his biggest punch in your face, because even the, let's say, most corrupt cop will say, like, you can't buy me for 50 euros because you have the billions of dollars allegedly. But all this now, they're looking to extradite him into US and UK, because the charge has been now starting for both brothers in US and the UK. And I want to say, like, thank you for following this for all of us, because people are still want to accept the truth that both brothers are actually, they're not what they say they are, and they are done the things what most of people they can't imagine. And I was questioning myself, how is possible some guy comes on TV and say, like, I'm the kickboxer, world title #1, and I'm so rich and famous. I'm like, who is the Andrew Tate? Who is this guy? Suddenly come out of the blue. And of course, the truth, it's been discovered slowly. So Nathan, what is your plans for the future? You're going to still stay same person you are, fighting for the little man, sharing the truth, or do you have any plans other in life?
I'll keep doing this. People respond to it, and it's leading to more and more opportunities. So I freelance and make videos for an Australian media company called ADH TV, and I'm also helping to work with a minister named Russell Broadbent, who he's been like very, very vocal and very, very supportive of people who are vaccine injured, and he's one who's continually asking questions and demanding accountability when it comes to excess deaths and other things like this. So I'm helping him with videos, and I've had other people reach out to get me on board. So yeah, I'm interested to see where this has taken me, because all I've ever done is kind of just express how I feel and what I see as kind of injustices and hypocrisy and corruption. So it's always kind of just been one video at a time. I started doing a podcast last year, and I really enjoy that because I can reach out and talk with people who are making an impact and be able to have those conversations. So I mean, I'd love to make longer form documentaries. Yes. Because I mainly make videos on Twitter. I'm kind of confined to time length, and so usually the videos are around about 4-minute mark. So I'd love to be able to have that space to make 90-minute documentary, and I still have an idea for a documentary, and I still want to make something exploring particularly Victoria and Australia with COVID, because I think there's so many questions around that. As to what the hell happened, I think the rest of the world and Australia itself is still asking, why did Australia, in particular, act this way? You know, why
it was the three countries: Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. They were most, because it's like we have so many people from Australia, and I remember 2021 the big what's it called mining magnate from Perth. He went to Croatia for holidays because I know Croatia was 2021 was just like we don't do vaccines anymore in Europe. We don't do fight with police and police was there. Start hard, but people stood up like in Victoria. That's I think what is the people don't understand. In Australia there was never been those type of conflict between police and the citizens, right? While in Europe you can see it, it's always clash, man. It's always bashing. It's always Molotov cocktails and everything else.
We're not like that. We're very relaxed people, Australians. Oh yeah. No, as Australians, we're not. I don't think we're violent people, and also we don't have a history of revolution. We don't even have a history of really standing up against the government because we're a pretty small country, and even our government officials. It doesn't feel like it is in America where you have these people that are just completely out of touch. They still feel like they're Aussies. You still will see them when they do the rounds. People go up to them in the pub and confront them. There's still an old man who shouted at Scott Morrison in the pub. Yeah. You still have that footage of John Howard when he'd go for a jog in his jog wear.
Yeah, that's true.
And a guy would run up to him who was working on something, and he had a spanner in his hand, and he gave him a hug. That he gets shot in America if that happened.
Look, you're right. You're right. The Australians, I say from my personal experience, I come 98, and I always say Australians, they don't know how lucky they are. They have everything here, what every country in the planet can imagine, right? Even the free medical, right? Except the dental. Dental, it's something I never understood why dental is not for free, but that's okay. But it's here you can approach the politician on the street, as you say, and talk to them and say, this, I don't like you. But that's Europe, it's traditionally been, unstable. It's always been these clashes, everything else. So Australia was different, but I was always interested why Victoria was so much being confined. When I see all these old people on the border living on a no man's land, they can't go home, they can't get here, they can't get there. And I'm thinking myself, why would they do this? This is, put them into that hotel quarantine or something instead of people for weeks sitting somewhere, But, look, if somebody want to help you with your project, how they can help you? Pop it on the website, give you email, give you a shout.
Yeah, just on Twitter. I mean, that's mainly where I am. I did have a Patreon, but I took that down for now. I want to find somewhere where I can put everything, all the videos that I've made up to this point. So I'm trying to figure out what format that would be. I would love to be on YouTube. YouTube would be a great platform because it's friendly for video creators, and it's much easier to be able to actually kind of search and categorize videos, whereas Twitter still isn't very friendly place. It's very hard to actually find. Okay. It's very hard to find and to kind of categorize. If you want to find a particular videos of mine, it's actually not easy. But unfortunately, YouTube is it's very, very I mean, I already had an account with multiple strikes, and still it's kind of shadow banned. And I took all my COVID stuff off when I started doing the Andrew Tate videos, and I thought, well, all right, I'll just have this account for just Andrew Tate videos. But even then, I was denied monetization. They wouldn't allow me to do it. I think because I'm not front and center in my videos. Talking through what I'm doing, for some reason they look at my videos and they see it as just taking other people's footage or just taking it, and there's not enough commentary. I think that's a lot of reasons for them. They prefer to actually have YouTubers and personality. It's better for them to monetize. So I'm still trying to figure out what is the format and what is the future for Milk Bar TV. How that actually looks.
Let's go make your Milk Bar TV famous in positive way, because I truly believe that you should make the video documentary about what you're saying. The legacy you can create for all of us, Nathan, it's great, because there's always actors. I remember in political school when I was, in military school, we had the political schools, and one of the subjects was called the social theory and productivity something. It's just ridiculous, right? It's like a abbreviation. It's called the TIPS. It's right. Anyway, so it's all Marxism, socialism. But I remember our professor. She told us every revolution its own children, right? Which means everybody who's been some type of defense, this or that, this it goes with the time. But the legacy needs to be created. And I truly believe that by creating the documentary, which you have intention to do it, I think it's going to be something that's going to stay for the many generations to learn from.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
I
still think that we're kind of living through this. I don't think it's ended. It's just kind of shifted. So now we're seeing this push for, more and more online censorship. And I see that as the same movement from the government that began with COVID. We're seeing the Australian government now attempt to not only censor what Australians can see online, but what the entire world can censor online. And the entire world is looking at that and saying, well, like, what the hell is going on in Australia? Just exactly like they did with COVID. So it's all these same questions about what the hell is going on in Australia, and with this government that just seems to be power drunk.
Look, that's a say to I like to invite you guys, all of you who want to go support Nathan. I'm going to put in the comment section below his X account or X-person known Twitter account. But Nathan, before we go, I just want to quickly touch something. You created some horror movies. Okay, I am flabbergasted. I saw them many times. I tried to get into the point of these movies, particularly that Bert, whatever was, like everything else. Where does your idea come from for these short horror movies? Is that because of the lockdown in Melbourne?
No. I mean, I did 2 horror short films before the lockdowns.
Oh, okay.
I just finished one when the lockdowns started. I like horror films. I like all films though. But I like horror films because you can get really creative with them. So you can kind of explore ideas, but you can kind of really push it, and it can be very visceral. But I think you can still. You can search for it. It's called Mary's Garden.
That's correct. It's still there, yeah.
Yeah, it's still there, and it's a crazy film. But maybe if you watch it, some interesting context with it is that I'd finished the film, and the film's about a couple, and she's pregnant, and then it's about the husband then trying to force her to get an abortion, and then it's about the actual fetus then kind of overtaking the mum. Yes. And controlling her, and then kind of trying to get revenge for the husband, the father trying to.
My son is a true Aussie like you. He's a Aussie, oi, and by default he makes a fun of my English and of everything. But he loves the horror movies, particularly that Saw. Yeah, Saw. Yeah. Man, other night he was watching about 3, and I said to him, Matteo, I can't do this anymore. Seriously, I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, it's going to finish in 10 minutes. I said, I can't watch these entrapments and the chopping of the heads and the falling in the glass. And I'm but I'm money for this one because you are doing quite creative work. So, Nathan, if you can give younger yourself some message, you travel in time, go in time and see young yourself, what would that message going to be?
I think I just, I tell myself, I spend a lot of time in my head. I think creative people do. You have kind of imagination. Yes. You think about ideas, and I think I just say that it's important to get outside your head and start to actually make things. That's how you kind of build a community, and that's how you build more confidence and productivity is by just making things, and then you just see how it's received. But that's for me. It really took COVID and the vaccine mandates for me to find my voice. And all it started was with one video, and I think that's where there's a lot of problems with social media, but it's also powerful in that you can get an immediate reaction from something, and that's very powerful and it's very useful as well. This is something people who want to build a community or something is just to get active and just to start making things. And just go from there, it's incredible how much things can change in a fairly short time. You cut to like 2 years later, and there's no way that I could have predicted where I'd be now, and the amount of people that have kind of shared my videos and have responded to it, and the amount of feedback I get from it, and that started from a place of like no activity to now with a lot, and I still try and kind of put out as much as I can.
You defied every possible definition of the being courageous person, and as I said to you, I have full right, credibility, and authority to say this to you. I saw the man in my life, a man I used to be bow on the street, believing they're like Andrew Tate, this guy types, me, tough, rough, and everything else. But I do remember one moment, including my father. The first bullet fired, my father, what he did, he took his wife, my mother, and my brother, and ran away, my father. My father was a big vocal nationalist and all these things, right? He left a message on the table, we are okay. I didn't saw them 3 years in a war. And for that reason, I want to say to you, thank you for standing up for people who don't want to voice themselves out for many reasons. I want to say thank you for being here and fighting these millions of small battles for the people who cannot fight for themselves, because they know it's not in vain. And as a Winnie Pooh book says, the ending, it's like at the end, it was worth it to live for it, and die for it. So sort of like this speaking, right? So Nathan, I want to put in your comment section below the Twitter account, X account. Sorry guys, come to the Nathan, give him support, share the ideas, and I want you guys to be there on Nathan corner and help him to reach his dreams. Let's go create a legacy.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me, Mario. Really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it because I'm a professional stalker. So it's like, I need to talk to this guy, but how can I send a message, I don't know nobody who knows you and all this, It's like, I'm going to send a message on that X, and you respond, it's like, yeah, man. So ladies and gentlemen, that was Nathan Livingstone for the Life, the Battlefield. Thank you, Nathan, for being my guest today. I truly appreciate it. And thank you again for being who you are. You're going to inspire many people. I can guarantee you this one. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.